My name is Melissa Witt. I'm a program specialist with the College of Food, Agriculture, and Environmental Sciences Center for Cooperatives, which provides management services to the Mid-America Cooperative Council. My colleagues Anne and Hannah are also on this call today, so feel free to chat with either of us directly if you have any questions or needs, and we'll make sure that we address those right away. Now it's time to meet the expert, and I would like to introduce today's presenter, Lindsay Good Seeley. Welcome, Lindsay. We're happy to have you, and thank you so much for doing this for us. Lindsay is the brand strategist at Farm Credit Mid-America with over a decade of experience in agricultural marketing. She specializes in creating customer-centric strategies that humanize brands and build lasting connections through storytelling. Lindsay is passionate about helping cooperatives deliver the right message at the right time to their owners, inspiring progress, authenticity in every interaction. So with that being said, I'd like to turn it over to Lindsay. Feel free to take it away.
As I pull this up, I do want to say I know that we've got a variety of different cooperative models here on the call today. So I'm going to use the phrases member owners, customers, patrons. All of those are interchangeable. I will probably default to saying things like customers or customer owners because that is our cooperative model at Farm Credit Mid-America. But just know that it is interchangeable to whatever your cooperative model is. So I'll start with this idea, and it's something that we have really adopted at Farm Credit Mid-America over the last 7 years or so. And it's this idea of a 360-degree customer approach. And so what is that? It is this idea that multiple touch points across multiple channels truly create that reinforcement loop that our members are looking for. And so whether that is through our marketing channels like organic, social, traditional, and digital advertisements, whether it is through customer communications, whether it be letters or emails that we're sending to our members, it also includes interactions with our team members. All of that should come together and create a halo effect for each of our customers. And why does this work? Number one, you've got the psychological impact. So using repeated messaging across multiple channels helps build familiarity and credibility with your brand and your cooperative. Two, it creates customer confidence. So seeing the brand in multiple contexts signals stability and commitment to the story or the messaging that you're telling. And then third, you tend to have higher conversion and retention rates. So when you've got integrated strategies that utilize all of the different touch points that you're having with your customers or your members, it helps guide them through their journey seamlessly. And so keeping in mind, and something that I would challenge all of you guys to think about when you're thinking, how do I communicate with my members? How do I keep them happy? Is think through all of the different options and channels that you have to work with. So, you've got your traditional marketing channels, but don't forget about, who are the relationship managers that are interacting with your customers or your members, and how can you use that approach to reach them and share communications as well. So why does communication frequency matter? Number one, it helps to keep you top of mind. So if you've got regular touch points, it ensures that your members don't forget about you, especially in competitive markets. Two, it helps build that trust and transparency. So making sure that we're frequently updating them on the things that they care about through annual reports or letters or emails helps to show that reliability, inclusion, and transparency to them. Three, it helps to reduce uncertainty. So when people feel informed and confident, they're going to have less uncertainty. They're going to not question if they've made the right decision by being part of the cooperative. And receiving that consistent communication helps with that. And then four, it helps support that relationship building effort. So the ongoing engagement helps to foster that emotional connection and loyalty to the brand, making it less likely that they'll take their business elsewhere. And I think that a good example of that, if you know about the Farm Credit cooperative model, all of our customers borrow from us and they're also customer owners. And our, model essentially is we've got our loan officers who are interacting with those customers on a daily basis. But we can't just rely on what our loan officers are doing. We've got to support from a marketing side because the last thing that we want to do is, let's say, one of our loan officers leaves or retires. We don't want to lose the customer because they've left. And so we can't just rely on the relationship that they've built. We've also got to work to build a relationship with the brand in general. So I think something else to consider is what's the journey for the member owner? Because if you understand the journey that they're taking, then you've got the ability to tailor your communications to the moments in time that it makes sense to communicate with them. It also means that you get to create personalized experiences for them. So mapping the journey helps to tailor those messages to where the member owner is in the funnel. For instance, if you're just onboarding someone, from our standpoint as a lender, we want them to sign up for online banking. And so it makes sense, maybe not at closing, but close to after closing, sharing, hey, make sure you sign up for online banking because you can have visibility into all of these things. It improves relevance. So when member owners receive the right message at the right time, it tends to increase engagement and conversion. So whether it is that you are reaching out, we've got a segment of our business that's crop insurance. And so communicating with our crop insurance customers, there is a timeliness to that, right? You don't want to talk about multi-peril crop insurance in the middle of summer when somebody's already bought their policy. But you can talk to them about acreage reporting because that is relevant. And so making sure that those messages meet the time of year and where your customer is at in their own mind and the decisions that they're going to have to make in that time frame. Three, when you understand the journey for the member owner, it helps you to be able to identify gaps. And so, what are the missed opportunities for onboarding, retention, or advocacy? So, I've been at Farm Credit Mid-America for just over 7 years now. And when I started, the first communication that we had with a customer post-closing was a statement. Essentially, welcome to Farm Credit Mid-America. Here's your bill, pay us. And that's not really a good experience for the customer. And so we've implemented things like a welcome journey where when someone comes in and they're a net new customer, we start them on introducing them to the concepts of the cooperative and the benefits that they get as being part of the cooperative so that, our first thing isn't like, okay, you took out a loan with us, now pay your bill. So understanding the journey and kind of mapping that out, that's where we were able to identify where those gaps were. And then finally, when you understand the journey, it helps you create a seamless experience. So making sure that you're integrating touch points across multiple channels helps with that consistency and again reinforces that 360-degree halo effect that we're really trying to get with our member owners. So I thought that it was helpful to go through the marketing funnel review because if you spend a lot of time in marketing, you're used to seeing the funnel that's here on the slide right now. Awareness, consideration, conversion. Let's bring them in. Let's get them to be, for us, a customer, a borrower. And that's really important because it is important for us to challenge ourselves as marketers or communicators to understand why am I doing this? Why am I advertising in this space? What am I trying to get from it? And so when you think about awareness, top of the funnel, these are going to be activations that drive high impact to reach current and prospective customers. Essentially, how many people can we get to look at our ad or look at our communication and, just be aware of who we are and what we do? As you drill further down, then you move into consideration. So This is hopefully reaching people who are already familiar with our brand, and it drives them to learn more about our cooperative or our products and services. So, whether that is stopping in at an office to learn more or going to the website, essentially getting them to take an action to take the next step to understand more about us. And then we've got conversion, which is capturing those interested and quality viewers that are ready to talk to us. So at the point of conversion, that's hopefully we've pulled them all the way down the funnel and they've become a member owner. But we can't just stop at this idea of bringing in net new customers. Because when you think about the cooperative and you think about the model and them being owners of the cooperative, there is a whole nother triangle that's inverted that builds on that to build that retention and to build the loyalty. And so these are some steps that, works for our cooperative model, but there's certainly, I think, some learnings that everybody can take away. So again, this entire inverted funnel is what we refer to as the retention funnel. So post booking directly after they become a member owner, how do you onboard them? Do you onboard them with a gift? Do you onboard them with a thank you note and, here's literature on online banking, or here's the next steps I need you to take now that you're part of the cooperative? Servicing. So for us, that's loan servicing. For some, it might be servicing of accounts, or how you're doing business and what your business model looks like. But focusing on that to understand how you can deliver an ongoing exceptional customer experience and do it in a way that makes sense and makes good use of resources like time and human work hours and that sort of thing. And so we have implemented Marketing Cloud through Salesforce. And so we've got tools there like distributed marketing emails that are already typed up, they're ready to go. And, when our loan servicing team is working with one of our customers, they don't have to take the time to write out a whole new email. They can just hit go on these essentially templated emails, making sure that, we're being efficient with their time, but also communicating the same thing to all of our customers so that they understand, what are the next steps? What did we talk about today? And what do I need you to do next? Next is cross-sell. And that's really exploring the ways that you can upsell your customers or your member owners to expand the share of wallet that you have with them. Do they have the opportunity to take out, new loan products or purchase more? Or maybe it's programs and services. Maybe you've got an education component to your cooperative and we're looking to, get them to come to those sorts of events. So cross-sell can get looked at as a lot of different ways, but essentially the more products that we have with a customer, regardless of, what our business model looks like, the more likely they're going to stay with us and that we'll be able to retain them. And then finally is this idea of lifetime value. So developing loyalty and advocacy among customers can look like a lot of different things. For us, we do a lot of storytelling because we believe that our customer owners are what makes Farm Credit Mid-America so incredibly special. And honestly, that we've got, it's our duty as an ag cooperative to help tell the story of agriculture through our customer owners. So we do a lot of storytelling. We use it in our advertising. We tell stories on our intranet internally as well as on our external facing website. We also do advocacy events. So whether that's customer appreciation events or an advocate council, which is what we have, so that kind of creates a feedback loop where we're able to talk to our customers and run ideas past them and get their feedback. All of those sorts of things help to build that lifetime value with our member owners. I think the other thing to think about when we're looking at these two funnels is the top funnel can be really expensive in the sense that it usually costs more money to bring in a new customer, a net new customer, than it does to retain an existing customer. And so when we think about how we split up our time as marketers and communicators, it's worthwhile to ask yourself, okay, yes, I'm bringing in net new business, but what am I doing on the other side, the bottom side of these two funnels to retain the business I have? Because it's going to be a lot more expensive to replace existing business than it is to necessarily just continue to bring in net new business. So thinking about those two funnels, the top one is really getting them in the door. So I've got two slides here, one on digital advertising and one on traditional advertising. And I think it's important to consider both of those and ask yourself, okay, what do I want advertising to do for me? Where do I need to advertise? And then choosing the channels that, meet those needs. I think it's really easy to especially if you're sitting in an office, you've got somebody that cold calls you or somebody that stops in at the office and they're like, hey, I work for the local TV station and I think that TV advertisements are going to be the right thing for you. Here's my pitch, here's my deal. And TV advertisements very well may be the right thing for your business, and they very well may be the wrong thing for your business. And so, knowing and having a strategy of how you're going to reach those people can be really important because nobody has an unlimited budget and we've all got to make decisions about when and where we're going to spend it. So, digital advertising, the thing that's really nice about it is you can use targeted segmentation, you can optimize in real time, you can create interactive engagement. It tends to be more cost effective than traditional, and you tend to be able to have a measurable ROI. So if you've got a leadership team who cares a lot about the ROI that's being generated from the marketing dollars that are being spent, digital advertisement is probably the place to be heavy. Channels that are included here are things like paid social media ads, using things like Google search ads, online display ads, email marketing, and then any influencer partnerships. And here we're talking influencer in the sense of, social media influencers. Because a lot of them have a big reach. And we know, especially on the ag side of the business, that there are plenty of ag social media influencers. So that's an opportunity for us to partner and understand who's working best for us. The advantages here are really just the idea that digital advertising is analytics driven. It's adaptable. You can change it almost in real time, and it's scalable for any budget. You can have a really large media budget and be able to do digital advertising. And if you have a small media budget, you also can do digital advertising and make it work for what you're looking to do. Now, traditional advertising is things like TV and radio, print media, outdoor ads like billboards, direct mail and event sponsorships. And traditional advertising has a place. The purpose of it is really to have that mass awareness. It helps to build credibility and awareness of your brand. It can really help with local and regional effectiveness, and it can help create an emotional connection. So you're reaching a broad audience. Everyone can see and feel the presence. One of the things that we have had to get comfortable with at Farm Credit Mid-America, because we have gone with a more digital approach, is not everybody is going to see the ads all the time because they're not necessarily in market for a new loan or they're not within our targeting, capabilities. And so some of our sales team members will be like, I don't ever see our ads. And honestly, that's because I don't want to spend money to show them our ads in the advertising space, right? I want to spend the money so that we're showing advertisements to the people that we want to bring in the door. Traditional advertising is different. Traditional advertising, everybody sees the billboard in the local community. Everybody sees, the newspaper if they're getting it. They are watching the local TV station. So there is certainly a place for both of them. And really what you've got to decide is, what's the mix I'm going for? What am I trying to do? So something else to consider, especially in today's day and age, is how do I create a digital purchase path or a digital sign up path? So we know that digital advertising and targeted ads can help capture attention and move people from just seeing your brand to actually visiting your website. From there, how are you optimizing those landing pages? Do you have clear calls to action? Are you guiding prospects to sign up or purchase without putting a lot of blocks in place? Um, from there, once you've got their information, how are you using it to deliver personalized email campaigns? What do you know about them? Do they spend a lot of time on, the farm real estate loan page? Maybe they're really interested in farm real estate loans. Let's serve them that content. Making sure that we're optimizing digital conversion experiences, things like an online application, allows members to join when, where, and how they choose to. Um, when we think about the way that our population has shifted in the past decade, and I think a lot of it was driven by the pandemic, we see that people are a lot more willing and, in fact, would prefer to do things digitally. And so, do you have the tools to allow them to do things digitally when they want to? And essentially not making the decision for them. So, I know one of the questions that we got ahead of the start of the webinar was, how do we utilize communications to keep our customers happy when they're at different tech levels? And one of the things I would say is start by releasing any beliefs you have about where people are at in their own technology journey. For a long time, we as a Farm Credit Mid America were like, our customers don't want anything technology based. They don't want digital stuff. Like they're not going to be comfortable with that. We still have lots of farmers with flip phones, and all of that is still true on some level. But what we saw during the pandemic is we couldn't go do business the way that we always had done business. We had to rely on some of these digital tools. And so we adopted DocuSign pretty early in, during the lockdown and when everybody went home. And we found that even some of our customers that we were like, oh, they'll, if, for instance, they're older, they're not interested in doing things digitally. They love it. And they don't want to come into the office anymore to sign papers because they can do it from wherever they're at. And so taking that learning, how do you implement it into how you bring people in the door and how you allow them to do business with you? Everybody's is going to look different, and the resources that you have to put into a digital experience is going to look different depending on where, the priorities for your business are. But it's something to start to explore because, as we get further and further into, the 2020s and the 2030s, that's that's going to continue to be an expectation of consumers. And so how do we meet them where they're at so that they don't go somewhere else? And then finally, something to consider is post-purchase engagement. So approval emails and personal support really help build that customer trust and encourage repeat business. So now that we've talked about how we bring people in the door, let's talk about how we focus on retaining our customer owners. So the first thing that I will say is that you have to start by understanding what you have to communicate. So there are things, at least for Farm Credit Mid America, that we are obligated to communicate to our customer owners on an annual basis, right? We have to do annual reports. And at this point, we're not comfortable with sending it through email because we don't have emails for all of our customers. And so we make the choice to print our annual reports and send them to our customers every year. We know that we have to do the elections ballot. That's a non-negotiable. And so every year we send out the elections ballot. For us, financial statements and bills, that is something that, we do. Servicing updates, what's changing, regulatory requirements. Some of those things are things that you know that you're going to have to build your communications to your customer owners around because they're non-negotiables. You have to do it. So I would start by mapping those out in a year. What are the things you have to communicate So then you can start to plug in, okay, now what are the things that I want to communicate? What are the things I think they should know? But if they don't know it, then, we're not going to get dinged by any sort of agency. The other thing to think about is transactional communications versus marketing communications. So transactional communications are there to facilitate or confirm a specific action or transaction. So things like application or order confirmations, shipping notifications if you're sending stuff out, password resets, account updates. They're typically required for service delivery. They're often triggered by a customer action, and they're focused on providing essential information. It's typically almost a one-to-one sort of communication, right? I go in and, I put in an application. I'm going to get confirmation that I put that application in. I'm probably going to get confirmation via email that my application got approved, those sorts of things. But we're not mass emailing everyone with the same email that got their application approved that day. So it is very much triggered along those journeys. Marketing communications are different, right? Their purpose is to promote product, services, or brand awareness. So things like this are like promotional emails, newsletters, special offers, or event invitations. And characteristic wise, it's promotional in nature. The difference between marketing communications and transactional communications is that marketing communications require an opt-out option. So if you are sending marketing emails and mass communications like that to your member base, you've got to give them the option to say, I don't want to receive these type of communications anymore. If you don't, then it could get you into compliance issues in terms of CAM spam laws. So just something to think about because again, so if we start with, okay, what are all of the things that we have to tell them about? Next, we go, okay, what are all the things that we want to tell them about because it is related to the business that they're doing with us? And then next, okay, what are all the things that we want to communicate to them that fits in this marketing bucket? So it's something to consider as you're building out that communications because what can happen is you go, okay, well, I'm going to start with the marketing communications because that's what's going to get me the new business. And then you look back and you go, oh, but look at all of these things that we're communicating transactionally. Oh, and here are all the things that we have to communicate with them because if we don't, we're going against the things that we have to do as a cooperative. It's hard to find balance if you're not looking at it holistically across all of the communications that you're sending out. Now, something to consider, and this goes to the journey piece, is building trust by communicating early with people. So if they're net new to the cooperative, a lot of people understand cooperatives at a high level, but they don't necessarily understand all of the inner workings of the cooperative model. And honestly, different cooperatives work different ways. And so setting clear expectations of, what is the cooperative model? What are the responsibilities they have and what are the benefits that they're going to get from being part of the cooperative? So sharing that early, sharing that in the onboarding phase. Transparency is important, right? Sharing governance details, voting rights, and any financial participation. Being transparent about that, helps to build that trust. We've already talked a little bit about this, but welcome materials. What's a kit look like with essential documents, FAQs, who's their key contacts, and what are some of the orientation emails that you could consider sending that include valuable resources and key dates for customer owners? And then finally, if we think about that 360 approach, we've got to have consistency in our messaging. And so, yes, we might be sending transactional communications. Yes, we're talking about, marketing communications, and then you've got things like the annual report. You have to have common through lines in order to continue to build that consistency. So, what are the common messages that you're sharing? And it doesn't necessarily just have to be like, oh, we're saying the same thing every single time. It's, we want to talk about, the fact that, we're here through all of the cycles of agriculture. You can say that a lot of different ways. If you want to talk about, our customers or what brings strength to our cooperative, you can say that in a lot of different ways. You can say it outright. You can do it through storytelling. You can have your customer owner say it for you with their own voices. But I think the key piece here is that you understand what those communication pillars are and you find ways to weave them throughout. The other thing to consider when we're talking about communication is that communication is a two-way street. So it's important to incorporate your voice of the member feedback and explore what, a customer experience or member experience team could look like within your business model. So how do you get voice of the member feedback? You get it through things like surveys and polls, interviewing members, paying attention to social media, and then watching any of your website and app feedback forms. It's really hard to identify the areas that you have to improve as a cooperative if you're not taking all of that and having it in a centralized space. So whether that's a customer complaint database or just something that you can go back and you can say, look, we're having a lot of complaints about the office is not being open, at 10 p.m. at night or something like that. That's purely an example, not a real example by any means. But, you can't know what changes to make if you're not getting communication back to you and then making those changes appropriately. So you can use it to improve products and services. You can use it to refine your messaging, enhance the member experience, and then overall inform the strategic decisions that are being made at the top of the business.
So, Lindsay, I would just probably also, we had that early question come in about how to improve grower engagement.
Hmm.
That would be perfect, and a perfect example of where that fits in right there to be able to
Yes.
engage with those growers.
Yeah. Listen to them. And when they start to see, oh, you're listening to me, then that makes them more apt to go, okay, maybe I'm going to say something else. Maybe I'm going to be engaged more. When they see their feedback being implemented, it certainly can help with that engagement piece. So next, and this is going to be different for every cooperative that's on the call today, is this idea of staying true to who you are. So when we think about communicating with our member owners, number one, I think it's important for us to understand what's our primary role in meeting our member needs. Because, us, for example, there are times that we have customer owners who expect us to play a really similar role to like what Farm Bureau plays for them. And that's not why we exist. And that's not necessarily what we're trying to do. Yes, we, do lobby and there is a legislative component to us, but that's not our primary role in meeting our members' needs, right? Our primary role is to provide reliable credit to our customer owners. And so I'm going to give three examples here. These are not exhaustive. You may play a very different role in meeting your members' needs, but it's just something to think about because, that idea of, jack of all trades, master of none, it applies here. We can't talk to them about everything and we cannot be everything for them. So where are the places that we have earned the right to play and where can we provide value to them? So the first is this idea of, are you an advisor? And an advisor could be someone who is, or a brand, a cooperative that is delivering personal guidance to them. So it's really focused on a collaborative one-on-one approach. It understands the individuals and the individual's needs and it guides them accordingly. We've got this idea of, are you an advocate? Are you playing the role of championing your member owners' interests? So making sure that you're amplifying your members' voices, sharing what matters most to them, and focusing on those legislative topics that they're really looking for you to, number one, explain to them, but also number two, to help influence so that things are being passed in a way that benefits them as a cooperative. And then the final example I have here is, are you an educator? And are you here to provide accessible learning resources? And an educator isn't necessarily that one-on-one education, but not personalized, but informative. So, are you building out your website to be this library of information for your cooperative members to go to? How are you providing them educational content? Now, there certainly is overlap, and there are aspects that, everybody is going to have within the role that their cooperative plays for their members, but understanding where you primarily play can really help you hone in on, okay, if we're talking about advisor stuff and we're focused on one-on-one approaches, then maybe I want to serve them, for example, information about their balance sheet. And if they've got questions about their balance sheet, the call to action is for them to connect with their relationship advisor. And if we're doing that, maybe it's more important for them to receive that email directly from their relationship manager than it is to receive it from the brand as a whole. So it's just something to think about because, when we think about like our email marketing platform, we have the ability to send it from just general, information at or fcma.com. But we also have the option when we know who they are tied with from a salesperson standpoint for it to come from the salesperson so that when they hit reply, it goes straight to the salesperson's inbox. And you can see a difference in how they engage when it's just a generalized email box versus someone who they know and they trust, even though it's a marketing email, even though the salesperson did not write the marketing email, it's there and it helps build their brand as well. So we've talked a little bit about this, but transparency is key, right? Our customer owners are not just customers, they own us. And it's important that we're transparent with them. So making sure that we're sharing clear financial and other key information, communicating any decision-making processes and governance updates, providing open access to policies and FAQs. So there's a lot of policies that we have on our website that are there if anybody ever wants to read about them. And then finally, be upfront about the challenges and changes that are happening. You can lose trust quickly when you are not upfront about the challenges and changes that are happening and why they're happening. So the final piece is follow your trends and adjust if needed. So it's hard to tell where you're at if you're not watching your metrics. So first of all, start with the voices of your members. What's the overall feedback on communication frequency? Are people saying, I really wish I heard more from the cooperative? Or are they saying, I really want to hear less from the cooperative? And use that to start to guide, okay, am I looking at adding more communications or am I looking at taking away more communications or finding efficiencies in the ways that I communicate? If you're tracking customer experience metrics, what is your net promoter score? Is it going up? Is it going down? Is it staying the same? If it's going down, exploring how you bring it back up. If it's staying the same, maybe you don't need any changes. And if it's going up, then you're doing something right. Keep doing it. And third here, listen to your team members who are customer facing. The members are not going to provide all of their feedback through the correct channels all the time. But if they've got trusted relationship managers, they're likely sharing some of that feedback. And so listening to team members, understanding the challenges and doing your best to meet them, can help build that trust with your member owners. So the next is to know and to watch your success metrics. What are your benchmarks for open rates and click-through rates in your email marketing? There are industry standards out there that are easy to search. MailChimp, I think, has a really good article about that if you're looking for that. But it's something to benchmark yourself against. And after you've done it for so long, you can look at it and you can go, okay, things are trending up or things are trending down. And if things are trending down, you go, okay, that's not working. Let's readjust. Let's adjust our approach. Click-through rates are always going to be less than open rates. We were looking at some metrics the other day, and for one of our campaigns, our open rates were around 82%. So people want to read what we have to say, but the click-through rates was closer to 10% or less. And part of that is their click-through rates will be low if you don't have strong call to actions because maybe that's not the purpose of the communication. Maybe the purpose of the communication is just to inform them through email. Um, but also, just because somebody opens it doesn't mean they're going to click, and that's okay. Those are very different benchmarks and different things to hold yourself to. If you're doing webinars, are people joining your webinars or your events at the same rate that they have been? Has it fallen off? If it's fallen off, maybe you're having too many of them. And how do you back that off? And then finally, how much time are your members spending with your content? So on the website, if you have a website, most of them should be able to be plugged into Google Analytics and you can see how long are people spending on my page. If they're spending a couple of seconds and then bouncing out, then that content's probably not the most engaging content. And so then that gives you something to work off of, how do I make it more engaging? And I think the other thing to note is who are you driving to the website? And is that a qualified audience or not? Some of those metrics are what's going to be able to tell you that. So my final slide here is just this idea that, our greatest strength as cooperatives is the connections that we have with our members. It's what makes cooperatives different. And so thinking about all the ways that we build those connections, both with our members as well as like member to member, can be really important and influential in how we keep our members happy and pleased with the way that we're communicating with them. So I feel like there were a couple of questions that came in through the chat. So happy to answer any of those or any others that you all may have.
Yeah, there actually were a couple of questions that came in, and it's kind of all targeted to varying generations and age groups. For example, best practices you would recommend for co-ops that often need to engage multiple age groups.
Mhm. So I would start by number one, looking at your data that you have. Do you have phone numbers, addresses, emails? I know for when I started, the amount of customers that we had emails for was very low. And we have had to work intentionally to build up that database in order to communicate through email to our customers. So some of it might be you don't even really have the emails in order to communicate to them. So starting there and asking yourself, okay, how can I get more emails? Maybe it's when somebody calls in, whoever's talking to them says, oh, hey, I noticed you don't have an email on your account. Is there one that I can add for you? It doesn't necessarily have to be a like marketing campaign to get them to give you their email. So I would start there. I think two, something to consider is it's not it's not split like it used to be of we're not getting technology adoption in the older generations. Sometimes we've seen that the older generations adopt technology quicker than the younger generations do. And so I would say don't limit yourself by the misconceptions of that. What I would do instead, this is the like 100% right answer that requires a lot of resources, but how do you segment out your customer base or your member base? Like, what do you know about them? And can you put them into different personas? Because, you'll find that you might have a group of customers who really don't want to be talked to, right? They're going to come to you when they need something, and otherwise, they're not looking for you to communicate with them. There's going to be others that might be very collaborative, and they're not going to make any decisions on their operation if they're not engaging you and talking through all of that stuff first. The way those two groups want to be communicated with is different, and it's not based on their age, right? It's based on their personality, it's based on their persona, and it's based on the relationship that they want to have with you, not necessarily the relationship you want to have with them. Now, that takes time, and I recognize that. So starting to explore that though is how you really can start to bring in that personalized experience that really helps build that trust with your member owners.